So what is going on, guys? Mirko from WordTech here, and today I'm bringing you guys another C++ tutorial because I have a final coming up next week, so I figured out this would be the appropriate video for me to bring out, only because it's not too time consuming, even though it kind of is, and I wanted to take extra time on this review I'm working on, so I decided to do this C++ video. So today what we're going to be talking about is the float variable type and the integer variable type. Oops, sorry. So the reason why I wanted to talk about these guys is because these are going to be the most common numbers you guys use, or integer types that you guys will be using with C++. And you guys are, unless you guys are working with big numbers, in which case, and you guys would want to use a double int, which is, well, you actually can't do that because it's a reserved word, which would be a double int. So basically, a float will give you the remainder of a number like 14.3. While the variable will be like a whole number. Variable would be a whole number like 10. And a double is a number that's higher, or even like the double amount of value for variable, or for integer, sorry. So integers can go up to, I believe, 27 million or 275,000. Or sorry, it's either 27 million or 2,700,000 for their integer value count, the number of bytes it can hold. Because it can only go to a certain amount of bytes before you can't hold any more for an integer value. So that's why when you want to go to a double is, well, it's kind of, you can tell what it is. It's double the value or square root the value of an integer, I believe. But it also is costly, a lot more costly in memory size compared to an integer. So that's why normally I like to stick with an integer rather than a double, because doubles are really expensive for memory. So guys, with this program, I kind of wanted to include using floats and integers. So actually for this program, we're only going to be wanting to use floats, because this program, we're going to be actually making something useful. So we're going to make a program that's going to be asking the user how many numbers they would like to enter in, and we're going to calculate their average. So we're going to need 4 or 5 variables. So float, because we want to be using floats for all of these, or you can use integers, except for the numbers that the user enters in, we want to use floats because we want to get the remainder. So int user num equals 0. So you guys see that I set this equal to 0. That's because we want to initialize all of our data members to 0. If we initialize this to 100, then right away the user is going to be saying, well, I already entered in 100 numbers because it's set to 100. No, we want to set it to 0. So that means we can ask the user for what they want. So really, when you declare a variable, it's going to be the variable type and the name in front of it equals a number and then end a statement. So just remember that whenever you do want to declare variables. Typically, I declare my variables at the top of main, or for now I just do it, I separate it into another .h file, which we will talk about later on, to just keep the code nice and neat. So we want an integer value for the user, how many times the user wants to enter in numbers, float for user num entry, or let's not call it, that's a kind of a long name, float sum equals 0. We'll do a float total equals 0, and then a float average to get the average. And I'll re-talk about why we use floats. So remember now, you ever go on your calculator and you try to find the average of something and it's like 5.6, 6.6. Well, remember how I talked about integers are going to be returning a whole number, a whole real number, while a float is going to be returning the number with its remainder. So like 14.2 or 14.6. If we found someone's average and it's a 14.2, well, C++ is going to round that integer number down to a 14. Or if we had a 4.6, it's going to round that integer number up to a 15. That's what integers will do if you have a remainder. It'll round it up or down compared to the number that it has. So guys, let's start actually writing this program now that we sort of know what kind of variable types we need, which are going to be float and integers. So if remember how we had cout hi world, well, now let's see out a different message. Cout hi, how many numbers would you like to enter in. And line, we see in, because remember guys, we want to be extracting whatever we get in from the user. So we use our extraction operator, and then we see in the user number. So now we are going to know how many numbers does the user want to enter in by prompting this message and right away taking in their number that they want to enter in. So now you guys are saying, well, do we have to rewrite this a certain amount of times or what? So in C++, there's something called a for loop, which I'll talk about more. So a for loop is going to have an index number that we start at. So for this, we want to always start at 0. Typically with anything you want to start at 0 unless you're reverse stringing a character array, which we're not going to be doing anytime soon. But if we did int I equals 0, that means we are going to be starting at 0. So what a for loop is going to allow us is, let me first write all of this out. A for loop is going to allow us to go through a certain duty a certain amount of times until our stopping condition is reached. So now you guys are probably getting all confused. Oh, what is this greater or equal to I++ kind of stuff? Well, I'll break it down for you guys, and I'll do a little bit better in a different tutorial. So for int I, let's break this down. So the very first kind of conditional statement that we have in our for loop is int I equals 0. That means we're going to be starting at the index 0. I like to use for 0, and you can declare it right there, which normally I will do. Int I equals 0 means we're going to be starting at 0. We want to start at 0 and then keep on incrementing until we reach that number that the users enter in. And then for our second or our middle one, I is less than user number. So this is basically saying is I want to keep on going through this for loop until we reach the user number through incrementing. So when we reach the user incrementing number, we want to stop this for loop and get out of it. So if we do starting at 0, and then we say we want to do stop at users input, which is going to be our third condition. Whoop, cannot type today guys, sorry. And then after that, our third one is going to be our incrementer. So I++ means that we are going to be incrementing I plus 1 each time we iterate through this loop. So the first time we go through, I is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. So if the user enters in 5, until I++ increment 0 5 times, and this I is not greater than or not less than user number anymore, we will be continue going through this for loop, just like it says here. So we're starting at 0, we stops at the user input, and we increment by 1. Increment by 1. That's probably a little easier than I++. So now you guys are probably wondering, well, you can just use user number like that. Well, yeah, you can just pass in, well, it's not necessarily passing in, but you can use the user's number just like this for the stopping condition. So now we want to do cout enter, sorry guys, I cannot spell today, enter your numbers, end line. And then now we want to see in the numbers again. So this time, let's see in total, which is going to be the numbers that the user will be entering in. So now, if we were to run this really quick, this is not the end of the program. I just want to run it really fast. So let's say this. We do 4. We're going to be entering now 4 numbers because look, I is going to be starting at 0 currently. Well, we go through the loop 1 time. So as soon as we start this loop, we load this right here. We have I set to 1. Now we go 4, 4, 4, 4. As you can see, we entered this in 4 times because that's how many times the user enter in, and we stopped at this stopping condition. So now if I exit out of that, now you guys are like, well, guess what? We're almost done. We actually just have to get the total and the average, which is actually really easy. So as you guys know, average is getting the sum dividing by the user's number. So what we can do is sum equals to sum plus total. So now what this is doing is each time we go through this loop, what we're going to do is total is going to be plus sum and then it's going to equal the sum. So with C++, whatever you want to make something equal to, you set that to the left side. I know normally you do 1 plus 1 equals 2. Well, in C++, you can't do that. You have to do 2 equals 1 plus 1. That's just how the language was written, and that's just how things are. So what we'll do is we'll see in. Each time we see in, we'll get our total to set to here, and it's going to set to sum. And then each time we go through, total is going to be added next to sum, and then until we go to the very end. So now if we just went C out sum, which means we see out our variable. Let's add a new line to make it a little more neater. Bam. Let's say this. Okay, I want to enter in 2 numbers. Alright, let's do 8, enter 8, enter. Oh, look at the sum is 16. That is right, guys. We are actually basically done with this program. But I want to say one thing. Watch what happens if we put this out of our for loop. Now, this is something definitely important to remember when you guys are coding. It's also really important when you guys are coding to do some things a little different so you can see the outcomes like I'm doing right now. So if I enter in my numbers, I want to enter in 2 numbers, all right? I want to enter in 4, and I want to enter in 9. Well, guess what, guys? Whenever we go through this loop, you guys are probably wondering, well, doesn't total just add up by itself? Total would not actually add up by itself, guys. What we need to do is we need to save that variable. So when we go through the whole loop and we don't save that 4, then it's just going to delete, or it's just going to erase by itself. And we're going to keep the last number the enter user's in which this case, the last number the enter user in was a 9. So that's why we need to keep this within our loop to keep adding our numbers together. So let's put that back in our loop. And now all we need to do is this. This is probably the easiest part about it, guys, is just simple arithmetic. Average equals, we have sum as all the numbers, or like the total numbers, divided by user number. And then after that, all we can do is we do C out average. And then, but let's make it a little neater on this one. Whoop, messed up. Let's make it a little neater on this guy. Your average is space. Jeez, guys, I'm so sorry I can't type today. Or actually, I don't need the end line. So if you guys wanted to do something like this, it's pretty simple. So C out, we're C outing into our buffer. Your average is this message. And then after that, another double caret or extraction operator. Or sorry, insertion operator. And then the average. We want to bring in the average number into our buffer so the user can see through our command line. And then our normal end line. So if we were to run this program, I'll bring this to the top so you guys can see. Hi, how many numbers would you like to enter in? Well, I want to enter in 6 numbers. Let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 3.5. So you guys can see we have our remainder here, which is 0.5. Now, if we were to do this with all integers, well, you guys would see that we would come out with a 4 because 3.5 rounds up to a 4 in C++. But if it was a 3.4, it would round down to a 3. So as you guys can see, we're going to be getting more and more, not a little bit more complex on the programs, but I understand it was the first time you guys seeing a for loop in this kind of tutorial stuff, and with the second tutorial having a for loop, it can be kind of hard to understand, but I will do a separate tutorial just on loops. There's a for loop, a while loop, and a do while loop, and the loops you guys will mostly be using is going to be a for and a while loop. So guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please leave a thumbs up if you guys did. I will be going through it and trying to do maybe 1 tutorial a week if I don't have to come out with my Friday video, but I like doing these videos because I think it's cool teaching people to code. I think nowadays one thing that we do really lack as enthusiasts and as people, and just actually as a statistic that I've seen, is that we are actually lacking people that can code, especially C++. Now, C++, like I said in the last video, is really important because if you think you're smarter than the compiler with memory management, and you're basically telling the IDE, I can manage my own memory. That's really important. And the stuff that I'm doing now in C++, it is a heavy managed memory. So that's why I think C++ is a really powerful language. It's a really low level language that you can really use the hardware. Like I said before, game engines, a lot of stuff is developed in C++. So guys, if you guys enjoyed the video, please leave a like below, thumbs up. Let me know if there's any kind of thing I can do for these tutorials to kind of make them better. And guys, this is Mirko with WordTech, and I'll see you guys in the next one.